Emily arrived home that evening, the rain still pouring heavily outside. She set the record player on the coffee table, its weight almost comforting in her hands. She removed the mysterious record from its sleeve and placed it carefully on the turntable. As she lowered the needle, the air in the room seemed to shift. It was a subtle change, but it was there. The first crackling notes played, soft at first, like an old melody trying to break through the dust of time. The music was haunting, strange, and oddly familiar. Emily felt an eerie sense of déjà vu wash over her as the sound filled the room. It wasn't like any music she had heard before, yet it felt like it was speaking to her, as if it held a message hidden within its notes. But as the song continued, something began to happen. The room around her started to distort. The shadows on the walls seemed to stretch unnaturally, and the light from the lamp flickered erratically. The music grew louder, more intense, until the entire room seemed to pulse with the rhythm. Then, without warning, the needle jerked and the sound stopped. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She looked down at the record, and to her shock, the needle had moved backward. The music was rewinding. She tried to lift the needle, but it wouldn't budge. The turntable spun the record backward, forcing the music to play in reverse. But when she glanced up at the clock on the wall, her blood ran cold. The hands of the clock were moving backward too. Slowly, the world around her seemed to shift, as if she were witnessing time itself unravel. The next morning, Emily woke up with a headache, the strange events of the previous night still fresh in her mind. She had dismissed it as a dream, a trick of her tired mind. But as she got out of bed and walked into the kitchen, she immediately realized something was wrong. The kitchen looked different, slightly out of place, as if the room had been rearranged overnight. The coffee cups were in different spots, and the newspaper on the counter had a headline that made her stomach turn. Local woman missing. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strange part was that Emily was certain she had seen that headline before. It was from a week ago. Confused, she reached for her phone to check the date. To her horror, the date read April 3rd, when it should have been April 4th. Her heart skipped a beat. She checked the time. The seconds were ticking backward. It couldn't be. Could the record have caused this? Could it really reverse time, even if only for a moment? That was when she noticed the most terrifying part of it all. There was no memory of her ever having been to the thrift shop. No memory of buying the record. Her mind couldn't reconcile what was happening. Emily tried to go about her day, but the reality around her kept shifting. The people she interacted with acted as if nothing had changed, but she could feel it, the eerie sense that something wasn't right. She tried to tell herself that she was simply imagining things, that the strange occurrences were the result of stress or exhaustion. But as the days passed, the sense of dread grew. Then that evening, as Emily sat down at the record player again, she made a decision. She had to understand what was happening. She placed the record on the turntable once more and lowered the needle. The same haunting melody filled the room. But this time, Emily focused all of her attention on the music. She willed herself to understand its message, to unlock its secret. As the music played in reverse once again, she closed her eyes and allowed herself to be consumed by the strange ethereal sound. The room around her began to distort again, the walls bending and warping, the air thick with a heavy, oppressive energy. And then, in a flash, she saw it. A vision. It was brief, just a moment. But it was enough to make her blood run cold. She saw herself, but it wasn't the Emily she knew. This Emily was older, disheveled, and her eyes were filled with terror. She was sitting in front of the record player, a look of horror on her face as she tried to stop the needle from spinning backward. It was as if Emily had witnessed her own future, and the future was bleak. Emily grew desperate. She tried to stop playing the record, but the more she attempted to disrupt its power, the more she realized she was powerless against it. The record didn't just rewind time, it reversed it. Each time the music played, it was as if Emily were slipping further into an alternate version of reality, one where nothing was in her control. Her attempts to undo the damage only made things worse. Each day, her past seemed to rewrite itself, each version of her life slowly becoming more twisted and unrecognizable. The people around her seemed to forget things, important things, and she found herself struggling to keep track of time, never sure if she was in the present or the past. The most chilling realization came when Emily discovered a pattern in the rewinding. Each time she played the record, she could hear a faint voice in the music, a voice calling her name. At first, she thought it was a trick of her mind, but it soon became clear that the voice was coming from the record itself. "Emily," it whispered, over and over. "Emily, you are mine." She realized that the record was not simply a time-altering artifact. It was alive, and it was using her to feed on the unraveling of time. In a final attempt to end the torment, Emily tried one last desperate act. She took the record from the turntable, clutching it tightly in her hands. The air around her crackled with unnatural energy, as if the world itself was waiting for her next move. She went outside and walked to the edge of the city, determined to destroy the record. As she stood at the edge of a bridge, she held it high above her head, preparing to throw it into the river below. But before she could release it, the voice came again, louder this time. "No, you cannot stop it. You belong to me now." The ground beneath her feet seemed to tremble, and she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. Spinning around, she saw the older version of herself, the one from her vision, staring back at her, her face twisted in despair. "Don't do it," the older Emily whispered. "I tried. I couldn't escape. You'll never escape." The sound of the record began to fade as Emily let go. She dropped it into the river, watching it disappear beneath the surface. For a moment, the world around her felt still, as if the weight of time itself had been lifted. But then she felt a cold, unnatural chill wash over her. The record was gone, but its presence remained. The reality she had known was gone. Emily stood alone, staring at the river, knowing that time was still playing its games, and that she had just become part of its eternal cycle. My mom had always worked a late shift at the hospital. She was a dedicated nurse, and I was used to being alone in the house at night. For a 17-year-old, it wasn't too bad. Our house was cozy and well secured, good neighborhood, neighbors I knew by name, and everything felt safe. It was always just me, the quiet hum of the TV, and my books. But recently, things had started to change. Mom started bringing her work home, and the weight of the stress was beginning to affect her. She seemed more distant, more anxious. Her new boyfriend, Tony, had started staying over more often, and Mom would always brush it off, saying it was nice to have someone around since she worked such late hours. I didn't mind it at first. Tony was charming, always friendly, and we had dinner together sometimes. But there was something strange about him. A look in his eyes when he thought I wasn't looking. It made my skin crawl like he was studying me, not in a fatherly way, but like I was something to be observed, analyzed. That evening, the change was palpable. Mom had left earlier in the evening, and Tony said he was going out with friends. I sat down to finish my homework, distracted by a growing sense of unease. It wasn't like the usual feeling I got when I was home alone. This time, there was something in the air. It was around 10:30 when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw Tony standing there, wearing a black jacket and jeans. He looked different. His face was flushed, his eyes wide in a way that made my heart race. He wasn't smiling. Instead, there was a look of desperation, almost like he was panicked. I hesitated but opened the door a crack, the chain lock keeping it from swinging all the way open. "Tony, what's wrong?" I asked, trying to hide the tension in my voice. "Maya," he said, his voice low and urgent. "I need to talk to you. I need your help." I raised an eyebrow. "Help? With what?" His hand reached for the door, and I instinctively stepped back, my heart beginning to pound. I did something terrible," he muttered, stepping into the doorway, his breath coming fast. "Please, let me in. I need your help. If I tell you everything, you have to promise you won't tell anyone, okay?" "Tony, what are you talking about?" I said, backing away slightly. My hand was hovering near the phone, but I didn't want to alert him. He pushed the door open wider, his body blocking the entrance. I had no choice but to let him in, my instinct screaming at me to shut the door and call my mom. But I didn't. I stepped back as he entered the house, his eyes darting around. I hurt someone," Tony whispered, his voice shaking. "I wasn't supposed to. I didn't mean to, but it happened." He looked at me with wide eyes, his pupils dilated. "I need you to hide me. Please, Maya. I don't have anyone else." I froze. "Hurt someone? What are you talking about? Tony, you need to leave, now." He didn't move. His expression became darker, almost menacing, and something in his voice shifted. "I didn't want to. I swear I didn't want to, but it happened, and I need you to help me cover it up. You're the only one I can trust, Maya. I can't go to prison." I didn't say anything for a moment, my mind racing. What had he done? Why was he here? Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, startled, and turned to see Tony standing by the hallway, his face flushed with emotion, his hands trembling. "Listen to me, Maya," he said, stepping closer. "I made a huge mistake, and if anyone finds out..." I could feel my pulse quicken. Something wasn't right. "What did you do, Tony?" I asked, my voice trembling with fear. His face twisted, and in that moment, I saw something dark in his eyes. I didn't mean to hurt them, but I didn't have a choice. His hands reached for me suddenly, and I stepped back. "Tony, what are you talking about? You need to leave now. I'm calling Mom." He shook his head, and his eyes filled with something cold. "You get it, Maya. I'm not leaving. You're not calling anyone. Not until you help me." I could feel the panic rise in my chest. He had crossed a line. My mind was racing, and every instinct told me to run, to get out of the house. But before I could even think, He lunged forward, grabbing my wrist in a grip that felt like iron. "Let go of me," I screamed, struggling against him. "You don't understand," he whispered, his breath hot on my ear. "They're dead. They're dead because of me. And you're going to help me cover this up. You're going to help me, or..." He let the sentence hang in the air, his fingers tightening. I knew I had to think fast. My brain was working in overdrive, but fear clouded my judgment. I managed to wrench my wrist free and stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall. "Please," I begged, my voice shaking. "Just let me go. I don't know what you did, but I can't help you." Tony's face twisted in anger. "You will help me," he said, his voice cold. But then his eyes flickered, like he was seeing something else in me. Something vulnerable. I'll do whatever you want," I said quickly, my voice trembling as I searched for a way to get out of this. "But I need to call Mom. I need to talk to her. She'll help us, please." For a moment, there was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, and I seized the opportunity. I spun around, grabbing my phone from the table, my fingers shaking as I dialed. "Mom, Tony's," I started, but before I could finish, the phone was knocked from my hand, crashing to the floor. Tony was standing right behind me, his face filled with fury. "You think you can call for help?" he snarled. "You think anyone will believe you?" Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Loud, insistent. Tony froze. His face went pale, and for the first time, fear flashed across his features. He turned to me, his eyes wild. "Don't answer it," he hissed, his grip tightening around my arm again. But I was already moving. I bolted toward the door, my body shaking with fear and adrenaline. I flung open the door, and standing there, wide-eyed and out of breath, was a man I didn't recognize. Behind him, the silhouette of a police officer was visible. "I heard yelling," the man said, his voice shaky. "Is everything okay?" Tony's grip on my arm tightened, and I felt a rush of panic. But before he could react, the police officer stepped forward, pulling out his badge. "We've been looking for a suspect who fits your description," the officer said, his voice calm but authoritative. "You're under arrest for the murder of..." Tony's eyes widened in shock. In that moment, everything seemed to slow down. I barely registered the rest of the officer's words as Tony lunged at me, but the officer was faster. He grabbed Tony, yanking him back and cuffing him before he could make another move. The world spun as I collapsed against the door frame. The officer turned to me. "Are you all right, miss?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. He killed someone," I whispered. I didn't know. The officer gave me a reassuring look. "It's okay, you're safe now." And that's how I learned that sometimes the people closest to you aren't who you think they are. And even the ones who seem harmless can hide the darkest secrets. Lena Moreau had always been the quiet girl, the one who stayed up late, scrolling through social media, trying to distract herself from the hollow silence in her small apartment. The glow of her phone screen was her only company, as she mindlessly swiped through Instagram, comparing herself to the world outside, so full of joy, excitement, and perfection. One night, as the clock ticked past midnight, Lena found herself once again staring at a post from her boyfriend, Nathan T. His latest like was on a picture of a woman she didn't recognize. The caption read, "Living my best life in the big city." Her heart sank as she clicked on the image. The woman's name was Celine Carmichael, a model with striking features, an impossibly smooth face, and a smile that practically begged for attention. She was the kind of woman who made you feel invisible by simply existing. As Lena scrolled deeper into Celine's profile, her stomach churned. Every picture, every post screamed perfection. Designer clothes, exotic vacations, flawless makeup. Celine was everything Lena wasn't. Bold, confident, the kind of woman who could make men stop in their tracks. Lena couldn't tear her eyes away from a video where Celine smiled at the camera, discussing, embracing the beauty within, while dressed in a tight red dress that accentuated every curve. Her voice was hypnotic, the kind of voice that made Lena feel small, unnoticed. Then, at the bottom of the post, Lena saw it, Nathan's name. "Looking good as always," he had commented, with a flame emoji. It felt like a punch to the gut. Lena slammed her phone down on the coffee table, her fingers trembling. She refilled her glass of cheap wine, staring at her reflection in the dark window. The silence of the room felt suffocating. For days, Lena spiraled, replaying the scene over and over. Nathan's words, Celine's face. It was clear to Lena now. Celine was everything she wasn't, everything Nathan seemed to desire. She was the perfect woman, and Lena was just ordinary, plain. In her desperation, Lena decided she had to change. She wasn't going to let this other woman steal Nathan away. She would become someone else, someone who could match the picture-perfect life Celine lived. The next day, Lena booked an appointment at a high-end salon. She dyed her hair a platinum blonde, changing it from its mousy brown to something that screamed attention. She bought a new wardrobe, tight, revealing clothes, anything that would make her look like the women she envied. When she met Nathan at their usual bar that weekend, he looked at her in shock. "Oh, Lena, what's going on?" "I just felt like switching things up," she said, flipping her new hair over her shoulder. "I thought it would be fun." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "It's different. Reminds me of someone." "Who?" Lena's pulse quickened. "Celine," he said, nodding. "She's kind of your vibe now. You look just like her." Lena's heart raced. That was exactly what she wanted. She was finally becoming what he wanted. But the changes didn't stop. Lena launched her own Instagram, filling it with carefully curated selfies, captions about empowerment, and seductive glances. Her followers grew quickly, and for the first time in her life, people were paying attention to her. Brands began reaching out, offering products to promote. It was everything she had ever wanted. Nathan, however, grew confused. He began to notice the difference. "Lena, this isn't you," he told her one night, his voice tinged with concern. "It feels like you're trying to be someone else." "I'm evolving, Nathan," Lena snapped, the words tasting foreign on her tongue. "This is who I'm meant to be." But despite her growing following and increasing popularity, something shifted inside, Lena thought. The mask she had created, the perfect woman she was pretending to be, began to feel like a prison. She no longer recognized the woman in the mirror. Every post, every like, was a reminder that she was living someone else's life. And then, one night, Lena found a message from Celine herself. "Hey, Lena," it read. "I've been watching your rise. You've got some great content, girl. How about a collaboration? I think we could make something incredible together." Lena's mind raced. Collaboration with Celine. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. She booked a flight to LA, her heart pounding with anticipation. Maybe this was it. Maybe she could finally be validated, truly validated, by the woman who had haunted her dreams. When Lena arrived in LA, she was greeted by Celine with a wide, cold smile. "Hey, you made it. Welcome to my world." They sat down in Celine's sleek apartment, the air heavy with tension. There was an unease between them, a subtle game being played. Lena couldn't shake the feeling that Celine was sizing her up, like she was examining some fragile creature under a microscope. Celine poured them both glasses of wine. "So, tell me, Lena, how does it feel to be me?" Lena froze. The question was like a slap in the face. "I'm not you," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm just trying to be me." Celine cut in, a thin smile playing on her lips. "It's okay, Lena. I get it. You want to be like me. You want to be the one in control. But you'll never be me." Something about the way Celine spoke sent a chill through Lena's bones. This wasn't just a friendly chat. This was a test. And Lena was failing. Then it happened. Celine stood, her eyes narrowing. "You think you can replace me? You think you can replace me? You think you can take everything I've worked for?" In that instant, Lena realized she had been played. This wasn't a collaboration. It was a trap. Before Lena could react, Celine moved quickly, her hand gripping Lena's wrist with surprising strength. "You want to be me? I'll show you how easy it is to disappear," she hissed. Celine pushed Lena toward a dark, hidden doorway that led to a basement. "Welcome to my world, Lena. I think you'll fit in perfectly," Celine said with a twisted grin. Lena struggled against Celine's grip, her heart racing. But before she could free herself, Celine revealed a hidden, grimy corner where all of her previous collaborators had been forgotten, their photos and identities erased from the internet, buried under layers of fear and control. "Don't you dare try to take my life," Celine sneered. "I made you, and now I will unmake you." The door slammed shut behind Lena, and the last thing she heard before everything went black was Celine's cold laughter. Back in Chicago, a post went up on Celine's Instagram, announcing her departure from social media for a break. But when Lena's account was checked, it was nowhere to be found. Every trace of her existence wiped clean. Her photos, her followers, her life, all vanished. Celine had won. Maya had always been the independent type. A young woman in her early 20s, she was ready to leave the bustle of the city and start fresh. She had inherited an old house on the outskirts of town from a distant relative she barely knew. It wasn't much, just a small, secluded cottage. But to Maya, it felt like the perfect place to escape the noise and chaos of her urban life. The house had been abandoned for years, and though it was in need of repair, Maya saw it as an opportunity. It would be her sanctuary, a place to think, write, and focus on her goals. Her parents, particularly her mother, were hesitant about her decision, but Maya was determined. As she arrived at the house, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for her inside. The house had a cold, eerie atmosphere that lingered even during the daytime. Dust lay thick on the furniture, and the air smelled stale, as if it hadn't been disturbed in decades. But it was the living room that gave Maya the strangest feeling. In the far corner of the room, covered by a dusty cloth, stood an old, full-length mirror. The frame was dark wood, intricately carved with strange symbols, and the glass was so old it had a slightly warped appearance. It was the only object in the house that seemed to be untouched by time. Intrigued, Maya uncovered the mirror, and for a moment she couldn't look away. There was something about it that felt wrong, but she shrugged it off and moved on with her unpacking. That night, she stood before the mirror, inspecting her reflection. But something was off. Her hair, which she knew was neatly tied back, seemed to shift in the reflection, as if it were moving independently of her. The shadows in the glass deepened unnaturally, and her own face looked paler, more drawn. Startled, Maya stepped back and turned around to face the room. but there was nothing there. Her reflection, however, remained in place, staring back at her with an expression she couldn't place. She quickly covered the mirror again, dismissing the strange sensation as nothing more than exhaustion. After all, she was alone in the house, and such things could be explained away by the mind playing tricks in the silence. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences continued. It started small. Objects in the house would be out of place when she returned from errands, and the temperature in certain rooms would drop drastically. But it wasn't until the second week that things began to escalate. One evening, Maya sat on the couch, flipping through a book, when she felt the unmistakable sensation of being watched. Looking around, she saw nothing out of the ordinary, nothing except the mirror. It stood in the corner, now uncovered again, as if beckoning her to look into it. Reluctantly, she stood up and walked over to it. As soon as she looked into the glass, her heart froze. The reflection was no longer her own. A woman stood in the mirror, tall with long dark hair, her face as pale as a ghost. Her eyes were hollow, empty, yet they stared at Maya with an intensity that made her blood run cold. Maya gasped and stumbled backward, but the woman in the mirror didn't move. Her own reflection, however, was distorted, the face growing more and more twisted as though something was trying to break through. Panicked, Maya covered the mirror again and quickly ran outside, gasping for air. The weight of the situation was too much for her to ignore. She had to know what was happening. Maya began to research the house's history. She visited the local library, digging through old newspapers and records. She discovered the house had once belonged to a woman named Ellie, a beauty who had lived there with her husband and child many years ago. Ellie was a quiet, solitary figure, and her family had vanished under mysterious circumstances. The townspeople whispered about the house being cursed, saying that after the disappearance of Ellie's family, strange occurrences began to plague anyone who moved in. No one knew exactly what happened to her, but some claimed that her spirit still lingered in the house, trapped between worlds. The mirror, they said, was where she had last been seen, staring at herself, waiting for someone to release her from the curse. Maya learned that Ellie had been a woman obsessed with beauty and vanity, constantly looking into the mirror to perfect herself. Some believed that she had made a deal with dark forces, using the mirror as a portal to the supernatural. When she died, her soul was bound to the glass, forever watching and waiting for someone to free her. The more Maya uncovered, the more her sanity began to unravel. The mirror was no longer just a reflection of her. It was a doorway. At night she could hear whispers coming from it, soft and distant at first, but growing louder each day. She began to see things, figures in the corner of her vision, shadows that seemed to move when she wasn't looking. One evening, she sat before the mirror again, staring into the glass. She felt compelled to reach out, as if the woman in the reflection were calling to her. As her hand neared the surface, a cold, clammy hand shot out from the glass, grabbing her wrist with an icy grip. She screamed and pulled away, but the reflection of the woman in the mirror smiled, a smile so sinister and twisted that it made Maya's blood run cold. The woman spoke, her voice echoing in Maya's mind. "Help me, or join me." Maya recoiled, her heart racing. But no matter how hard she tried to pull away, the mirror seemed to draw her back. She couldn't escape its hold. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. It was as if the house itself was alive, pushing her toward the mirror, urging her to become part of its dark secret. Maya knew she couldn't fight it alone. Desperate, she sought out a local spiritualist, an old woman named Adelaide who was said to have knowledge of the occult. Adelaide listened patiently to Maya's story, then nodded gravely. "The mirror is a prison," Adelaide explained. "Ellie's soul is trapped inside, but it's not just her spirit, it's something darker. The mirror has been feeding on the souls of those who try to free her. It wants more." Adelaide gave Maya a ritual, a dangerous one, that could break the curse. But it was risky. If performed incorrectly, it could seal Maya's fate, trapping her soul inside the mirror forever. With no choice left, Maya returned to the house that night. As she prepared the ritual, she could feel the mirror pulling at her, almost as if it were alive, aware of her every move. The whispers became deafening, and the glass seemed to shimmer with an unnatural light. Maya closed her eyes and began the incantation. She felt the power surge through her, the mirror reacting violently as if trying to resist. But Maya held firm, her voice steady and strong. The air grew colder, and the shadows in the room twisted into grotesque shapes, trying to claw at her. Suddenly, the mirror cracked. The woman's figure writhed in agony, her face contorting into a mask of fury and pain. With a final deafening scream, the glass shattered, and the room fell silent. The curse was broken, but the house was left in ruins. Maya was never the same. She moved away from the house, never to return. The mirror, now shattered, had taken its last victim. But sometimes, when the moon is high, Maya swears she can hear the whispers of Ellie calling to her. And on rare occasions when she passes a reflective surface, she catches a glimpse of a woman, pale, ghostly, with hollow eyes, staring back at her. Mira had always loved him. Kian Song, the rising star of the K-pop world. His voice was melodic, smooth, and rich. His smile, as if crafted by the gods themselves, lit up every stage he graced. Mira had been a fan since his debut. His every movement, every note he sang, left an indelible mark on her heart. She wasn't just another fan in the crowd. No, she believed she was different. She was special. She was the one who truly understood him. She collected everything Kian had ever touched: albums, posters, concert tickets. Her apartment was a shrine, a curated collection of his career, from his earliest days as a trainee to his present success. But the thing that had caught her most was his gaze. When Kian performed, his eyes would lock with hers, and in that brief moment, it was as if time stopped. She imagined that in those fleeting seconds, he could feel her presence. Maybe not in the way she felt it, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that he noticed her. The fans in the crowd screamed, shouted, waved light sticks. But Kian, when his gaze fell upon her, she was certain that it lingered a moment longer than necessary. It was as if there was something more. She wasn't just part of the crowd. She mattered to him. It was a cold Friday evening when she saw the tweet. Kian's agency had announced that they were holding a small exclusive fan meeting for a select group of fans. To win an invitation, you had to engage in the company's social media contest, a raffle that would select only the most dedicated fans. Mira's heart leaped in her chest. This was her chance, her moment. She stayed up all night, entering every possible form of the contest, tagging Kian's official fan pages, reposting, commenting, and sharing every possible post related to the contest. Sleep-deprived and dizzy, she finally received the notification. She was one of the lucky winners. She would meet Kian. Her hands shook with excitement as she reread the email. The details were vague. Just a time, a location in Seoul, and a note about special instructions. It didn't matter. She would meet him, face to face. The day arrived faster than she could prepare for it. Mira spent hours perfecting her outfit, styling her hair, and carefully choosing the gift she would give him, a small, handcrafted music box she had spent weeks designing. She wanted to give him something personal, something that said, "I understand you." The fan meeting was held in a nondescript building, away from the bustling crowds. Mira arrived early, her heart pounding in her chest as she waited for the doors to open. Fans trickled in, all of them talking excitedly. But Mira stayed quiet, her eyes focused on the entrance, waiting for Kian to appear. When he finally stepped into the room, everything else faded away. He was even more beautiful in person. His presence was magnetic, his smile brighter than she had ever imagined. He walked down the aisle between the rows of fans, his eyes scanning the room, stopping briefly as he looked into Mira's eyes. It was brief, a passing moment, but for Mira, it felt like an eternity. The fan meeting was everything Mira had imagined. Kian answered questions, joked with the crowd, and took pictures with fans. Each time he smiled or laughed, Mira felt a part of her heart soften. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. When it was her turn to meet him, she stepped forward, trembling with anticipation. The distance between them felt like an eternity. As Kian extended his hand, she placed the music box in his palm. He looked at it with a small frown, then up at her with a raised eyebrow. "You made this?" he asked, his voice smooth and warm. Mira nodded, her breath catching. "It's for you," she said softly. I thought you might like it." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thank you. I'll keep it safe." Her heart raced as he took a photo with her. He stood too close, his hand resting on her shoulder. The photo was taken, but for Mira, time seemed to stand still. For a brief moment, she thought she saw something in his eyes. A flicker. Recognition. As if Kian was seeing her for the first time. It was nothing, she told herself. He was just being kind. But as she left the room, a strange unease began to coil in her stomach. The fan meeting ended, but Mira's obsession with Kian only deepened. That night, she replayed the moments in her mind. His smile, his touch. There was no doubt in her mind now. She was different from the others. He had noticed her. And even though it was brief, he had remembered her. Days passed and Mira found herself obsessively searching for anything related to Kian. Videos, photos, fan interactions. But then one night, she found something odd. It was a simple message on his fan page. "Thank you for the beautiful gift. I've been thinking about it all day." It was from Kian. But the message wasn't meant for the public. It was a private post, one directed solely at her. Her fingers shook as she typed a response. "I'm glad you liked it. I made it with you in mind." She hit send, not expecting a reply. But to her surprise, Kian responded almost immediately. "Come to the studio tomorrow night. I'll be waiting." Her heart raced. This couldn't be real. The next day, Mira followed the instructions in the message. She arrived at the studio just as nightfall set in, her breath visible in the cold air. The lights in the building were dim, and there were no signs of anyone else. Mira hesitated for a moment, but then pressed the doorbell. The door opened almost immediately. There, standing in the dim light, was Keon. His eyes were cold, but they lingered on her, unblinking. "You came," he said, voice soft but unmistakably sharp. "Good. Come inside." Mira's heart pounded as she stepped into the darkened hallway of the studio. The air was thick with the scent of incense and old leather. Keon led her down a narrow corridor, past empty rooms filled with sound equipment and recording instruments. "Do you like it here?" he asked, his voice distant, like he was testing her. "I do," Mira said, struggling to steady her voice. "I love your music. I feel connected to you, more than I can explain." He nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving her face. They reached a small, dimly lit room. A large window on one wall overlooked the city below. The entire space was eerily quiet, except for the soft hum of machines in the background. "Sit," Keon said, gesturing to a chair at the center of the room. Mira obeyed, her body trembling. Keon closed the door behind them. "You know, Mira," he began, his voice suddenly colder, more deliberate. "You're not like the other fans. They scream, they shout, they beg for my attention. But you've always been different. You've watched, haven't you? From the shadows, in silence, in silence." Mira's throat tightened. I don't understand." His eyes glinted with something dark. "You gave me the gift, the music box. It's beautiful. But you've been watching me, not just through the camera, but through everything." Mira recoiled, her hands shaking. She had been too careful, too hidden. How did he know? Keon stepped closer, his voice soft but filled with a chilling certainty. "You think I didn't notice? That I didn't feel your gaze on me all this time? You've been the one who watches me from the shadows. But now I want to see you, Mira, all of you." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black device. A camera. Mira's heart stopped. "You wanted to be close to me, didn't you? You wanted to know me. But now I'm going to show you something." He pressed a button, and the room's lights flickered. Images appeared on the screen, one after another. Video clips of Mira from her apartment, watching him through the camera. The recordings were crystal clear. Her body froze in horror. He had been watching her. "You've been following me for so long," Keon whispered, his voice almost a lullaby. "But now you're mine. You belong to me, just like all the others." The room felt suffocating. The images on the screen were of her quiet moments, her obsessive gaze. And then, the message became clear. He was not the one being watched. He had always been the watcher. Suddenly, Mira realized with a sickening twist in her stomach that she had become part of his collection, his private world. The door slammed shut behind her. Keon stepped forward, his eyes glinting with malice. "You wanted me. You watched me. Now you're here, and you will never leave." Mira's pulse pounded as she backed into the corner of the room. "What do you mean? You can't do this to me." Keon smiled darkly. "The game's over, Mira. You're not the first one to fall into my trap, but you're the one who watched the longest." He stepped closer, and this time, his voice dropped to a whisper. "And now, you will always be here." I never believed in ghosts. I always thought those haunted corn mazes people put up every Halloween were just for fun. But that year, I learned that there were fields that were not meant for the living to enter. It was Halloween when I was 20. The four of us, me, my boyfriend Luke, and my two best friends Ben and Kayla, decided to go to a super scary corn maze in a remote suburb called Hollow Creek. The drive was longer than we thought. We drove down winding dirt roads, lined with tall, dry cornfields, the wind whistling through the leaves like whispers. When we arrived, a rotten wooden gate appeared in the moonlight, hanging a shaky sign. Hollow Creek Corn Maze, 1 night only. There was no long line of people waiting, just a middle-aged man with a crooked smile selling tickets. His voice was hoarse. "Be careful. If you get lost, don't separate from the group." I forced a smile, thinking he was just playing the role for fun. We walked through the bamboo gate, the lights from the parking lot gradually receding. Inside, the cornfield was like another world. Silent, only the rustling of the wind and the musty smell of damp earth. Kayla held a flashlight, and Ben brought his phone to record a clip for fun out. At first, everything seemed normal. Mannequins hanging fake corpses, loudspeakers playing screams. But as we went deeper, the loudspeakers suddenly disappeared. No more music, no more voices, just the sound of our footsteps and cold breaths. Then we heard crying. A child's voice sobbing somewhere in the darkness. Luke shone his flashlight in that direction, but saw only swaying corn leaves, no one. Kayla said shakily, "It must be an actor." But I realized no one hires kids to act in a corn maze in the middle of the night. We kept going, but every turn started to look the same. Ben turned on the GPS. No signal. When I turned back, the path behind me disappeared. Just corn, corn, corn. Then the flashlight flickered. For a moment, I saw a figure standing in the middle of the path, head tilted to one side, long hair covering his face. When the light came back on, there was no one. I screamed, but Luke said, "Calm down, it's just a shadow." Before he could finish, a hand reached out from the middle of the cornfield and grabbed Ben's ankle. He fell face down on the ground, screaming hysterically. When Luke pulled him up, the hand was gone, leaving only a deep mud mark in the dirt, as if someone had crawled out from under the field. Ben gasped. "We have to get out of here. Now! Now!" We ran in all directions, not knowing which way to go. The wind picked up, rustling the corn stalks like 1,000 whispers. "Stay! Stay! Stay with us!" Then, Kayla disappeared. A shrill scream rang out behind us, and we turned around, only to see her phone on the ground, the screen still spinning, recording a tall, dark figure dragging her into the cornfield. Luke pulled me running, but I could clearly feel something following. Every time I turned, a corn stalk seemed to shift, closing in behind us. Finally, we saw a small wooden shack, a yellow light flickering inside. We rushed in and slammed the door. There was no one inside, just a tattered sign hanging on the wall written in black charcoal. They never leave. On the table were some rotten tickets, identical to the ones we had bought. I flipped the first one over and saw a name and picture of a man, Ben Hollow, missing in 1987. The face in the picture was the ticket seller at the gate. Luke grabbed my hand and ran out of the hut, but the door wouldn't open. Outside, the rustling grew louder. I looked through the crack in the door. Scarecrows were coming from somewhere, surrounding the hut. They had sunken eyes, mouths sewn with black thread, and step by step they were getting closer. Luke banged on the window, but the glass didn't break. I screamed, trying to scream for help, when I heard the same childish voice right next to my ear. "It's your turn." A small, cold hand grabbed my neck from behind. I fell, my vision darkening, and the last thing I saw was Luke's panicked face being pulled back by dozens of arms from the cornfield. The next morning, our car was found abandoned in the parking lot, the keys still in the ignition. None of us were found. But when the police arrived at Hollow Creek, they found no maze, just a vacant lot, corn that hadn't been planted in 30 years. An old sign had fallen into the grass, the words fading. Hollow Creek Corn Maze, open Halloween, night 1987 only. And the locals still say that if you drive by on the night of October 31, you'll see yellow lights flickering in the cornfield, and a voice calling from afar. "One night only, do you dare?"
In an old, decaying mansion on the outskirts of a forgotten town, there were whispers of strange occurrences. The house had stood abandoned for decades, yet every time someone dared to enter, they reported seeing dolls, dozens of them, all scattered throughout the rooms. But the most terrifying part wasn't the dolls themselves. It was that they were always watching. And when the town folk spoke of it, they mentioned something far worse than the dolls. They spoke of the dolls beneath the floor. No one dared to speak of what happened to those who tried to dig them up. Henry, an antiques dealer, had heard the rumors for years. He'd never believed them, of course. Dolls? Just old children's toys. But when a wealthy client offered him a handsome price to find rare items in the mansion, he couldn't resist. The mansion, long abandoned and overgrown with ivy, looked innocent enough from the outside. Inside, dust covered the furniture, but there was something unsettling about the silence. As he explored the empty halls, he found what he was looking for. Dozens of porcelain dolls lined the shelves of the dusty room, their eyes lifeless but too lifelike. It was as though they were waiting for something. But as he moved closer to examine one, a strange sensation washed over him, a cold shiver running down his spine. The air smelled of something rotten, but Henry was too focused on the dolls to notice it first. He reached out to touch one. The eyes of the doll seemed to follow his every move. As Henry rummaged through the house, he found a trapdoor beneath a rug in the corner of the room. Curiosity overtook him. He pulled the trapdoor open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down into the basement. The air in the basement was thick with decay. The walls were lined with even more dolls, but these were different, worn, tattered, some were missing limbs. Their porcelain faces cracked, but still, their eyes seemed to stare back at him with a horrifying intensity. The most disturbing thing, however, was that beneath them, in the floorboards themselves, something was moving. Henry felt a sudden urge to dig, as if something was compelling him to reach deeper, to uncover whatever was hidden beneath the floor. The wooden planks were warped, cracked, and worn, but the sound of something scraping underneath drove him to continue. He pried up the floorboards, and as they creaked open, he saw it. Dolls, dozens of them, entombed beneath the floor, their bodies crammed into a tight space. their faces frozen in expressions of horror. But these dolls, they weren't just dolls. The eyes moved, the mouths twitched, and the air began to vibrate with a low, mournful hum. A voice, deep and echoing, seemed to come from within the floorboards, as if the dolls themselves were speaking to him. "Let us out." Before he could react, the ground beneath him shuddered. The dolls' eyes blinked open fully. Their heads turned, one by one, following him with an unsettling, synchronized movement. Henry stumbled back, heart pounding, but his feet were rooted to the floor. He felt a press. Henry woke, but it wasn't the world he had known. He was no longer on the cold floor of the basement. Instead, he found himself surrounded by dolls, hundreds of them, all lifeless once more, their eyes closed, waiting for the next unwitting soul. A whisper brushed against his ear, just barely audible, "You belong to us now." It wasn't just the dolls that moved. Henry's limbs twitched. He reached up to his face, and in the reflection of a nearby, cracked mirror, he saw it, the horrifying truth. He was becoming one of them, his body slowly changing into porcelain, the coldness creeping into his bones. His limbs stiffened, his skin turned pale and lifeless, his mouth barely able to form words. And then, the voice again, louder this time, "Now you will watch." Evelyn woke up the next morning in her nearby house, unaware of the horrific events that had unfolded in the mansion. But she couldn't ignore the strange feeling that something was wrong. She looked outside, and as she gazed across the hill, she saw it, the dolls, hundreds of them, standing perfectly still in the windows of the mansion. The wind whispered softly through the trees, and with it, she heard a faint voice, distant and haunting. "Let me out." The dolls wait, always waiting, hungry for new souls. And every time someone enters the house, the same thing happens. They join the collection. The floorboards shift, and the dolls reach up, pulling them into the depths, trapping them within the walls for eternity. The town will never speak of it, but the whispers can still be heard in the wind, begging for release. And once you've entered, you will never leave.
A few years back, when I was still a teenager, my best friend Daniel and I were just a couple of broke high schoolers trying to make ends meet. So when we heard old Mr. Whitaker was looking for help cleaning out his massive estate just outside of town, we figured, why not? He was an odd figure. When we met him, he wore thick gloves, even in the summer heat, and spoke in clipped, almost rehearsed sentences. Still, he offered us $100 each per week, cash, just to dust, sweep, and clean out the house room by rooms. Seemed like a dream job. It wasn't. The house. From the outside, the house looked like something out of a forgotten century. Towering and covered in tangled ivy, its windows dark and lifeless. The front gate groaned like an animal in pain every time we pushed it open. The garden was wild, overgrown, and oddly symmetrical, as if it had once been beautiful and someone had tried and failed to keep it from dying. The first time we stepped inside, something felt wrong. The air was thick, stale. It didn't smell like dust, more like old fabric, rotting wood, and something sickly sweet beneath it all, like flowers left too long in a vase. I remember Daniel paused in the doorway. "Dude, this place gives me the creeps." I laughed it off. "Yeah, but it pays." We got to work, sweeping floors, clearing cobwebs, wiping grime off walls that hadn't seen sunlight in years. The silence of the house was oppressive. Even when we spoke, our voices sounded muted, swallowed up by the vast, decaying walls. The doll. On our third day, while cleaning what looked like an old parlor room, I spotted it. Sitting alone on a high wooden shelf was a porcelain doll. It was no bigger than a toddler, dressed in a tattered red velvet dress, its face cracked along one cheek. One of its glass eyes was cloudy, while the other was crystal clear and blue. That single eye seemed to fixate on me the moment I entered the room. I froze. "Hey, Daniel, you see this?" He walked over, squinted, and recoiled slightly.
That's the creepiest thing I've ever seen. I hate dolls, I muttered. Why would someone keep that thing? We left it where it was, not wanting to touch it. But after that day, things started changing. The whispers and shadows. The first sign was the whispers. They started soft, just at the edge of hearing. At first, I thought they were drafts through the old vents. But no, these whispers had rhythm, words. They sounded like a child singing a lullaby in a language I didn't understand. Daniel heard them too. One afternoon, while mopping the hallway outside the parlor, he suddenly dropped the mop and turned pale. "What?" I asked. He stared into the shadows near the stairwell. Something just laughed. I listened. Nothing. "You're messing with me," I said. But then I heard it too, a low, breathy giggle that echoed through the walls, and the air turned cold. I mean winter cold. Our breath began to mist in front of our faces. The next day, Daniel showed me scratches on his back. 3 long, thin marks like something had clawed him while he was scrubbing the bathroom upstairs. The moving doll. It got worse. The doll. It started to move. At first, we thought we were imagining things, but on multiple occasions we found it in different parts of the house, even though neither of us had touched it. One morning, it was sitting in a rocking chair in the upstairs hallway. The next on the piano bench in the music room. Once it was perched at the very top of the staircase, facing downward as if watching us. I tried to laugh it off, tried to rationalize it. "Maybe Mr. Whitaker's messing with us," I suggested. "He's old, maybe he thinks it's funny." Daniel shook his head. "He hasn't even been here since the first day. You've seen how he never enters the house." And it was true. Every day he'd unlock the gate, let us in, then vanish. The night it came alive. We should have quit. We talked about quitting, but curiosity is a stupid drug and we were hooked. On the 7th day, something happened that neither of us could explain or forget. We were finishing up late. The sky had turned orange outside. Daniel was in the kitchen and I was upstairs, collecting tools. As I turned the corner into the parlor, I stopped dead. The doll was there, standing, not sitting, standing on the windowsill, arms stretched out, head tilted, and it turned to look at me. I screamed. Daniel came running, and when he saw it, he screamed too. And then the lights flickered, the walls groaned, the temperature dropped instantly. And from behind us, we heard footsteps, slow, dragging steps, like bare feet across wooden floors. We turned. Nothing. Then came the voice. A child's voice, soft and broken. "You shouldn't be here. Mr. Whitaker's return." We ran, or tried to, but the front door slammed shut and wouldn't budge. Daniel was banging on it when Mr. Whitaker finally burst in through the back, his face pale, eyes wide. He was carrying a small wooden box and a black vial of liquid. "Where is it?" he hissed. "Where's the doll?" We pointed. It was now seated calmly in the middle of the room, its eyes dark and hollow. Mr. Whitaker stepped forward, uncorked the vial, and poured the thick black liquid over the doll's face. He chanted in a language I'd never heard, harsh, guttural, ancient. And in the shadows of my room, just for a second, I see something small, something wearing red velvet, watching.